no one really comes up to coaching like, hey, I want to transform my life, or um, let me start a personal growth journey, right? People usually don't start that way. Very few. There have been a few, but majority of us don't start that way. All right, hello everyone. I'm Dr. Vernita White. I am your brilliant solutionist, and I help high achieving, high powered, high performing women go from unstuck to unstoppable, move from resume to reinvention, and learn how to embrace their brilliance and expand their lives beyond their positions, titles, and degrees. So, if you watch any of my other videos, I've had a different background. I'm like sitting either in my office studio or somewhere else with a virtual background, but I decided to do this one a little differently today. And I haven't done a video like in a while. I know so much has been happening, and it was like, okay, get on record. And I would have like a list of things that I want to do for the video, then something else would come up. And I'm finding myself with all of these different opportunities, solutions, not solutions, but solutions I want to provide for other people. And so much is happening. And then so it's at this point, you have to pick something or a few and write it out. So I was thinking about what did I want to come on here for. I was planning on being on like an hour ago, but I got caught up in TikTok. I did like a morning routine, or welcome to August. Here's what I did in the beginning of the day. This is what I did in the middle, at the end of the day. But the middle sometimes just it didn't work out, as planned. But I wanted to make sure I finished strong, so I did a TikTok on that. And then as I was uploading, or waiting for it to upload, they show you more videos. Like, they're very smart to keep you on the app. So then I got caught up waiting for the things to upload. And then I was trying out different filters, just having like some fun. And so now it's like an hour and a half past the time I was normally going to do it. And it's lightning and raining outside, but whatever. So this video, what I'm going to talk about, I don't have anything like actually scripted out, and normally I do have something like scripted out, but I remember I did a post on my Instagram and Facebook, and I talked about when I was talking to this executive. I had a meeting with her, and I was like, I want to get into executive coaching, really with high-level women in the corporate space. That's thunder and lightning. If everything's okay in here while I'm on the computer. Just talking about ways to like kind of break through in that market. And I was telling her like, well, when I started my personal development or my personal growth journey, blah, 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 blah. And she kind of looked like, well, I don't know what you mean by that. And then we continued the conversation, and she ended up saying, well, you know everything what to do. Like, you've been in corporate. I mean, I've been a college professor working in K-12, so not like corporate, but she was like, you know what to do. You're not really training people or the women how to do good at their jobs. It's really about how to manage their full lives. And she was like, you know how to do that. Well, you know what questions to ask and things like that. And that's very true. But what I put on my Instagram, I was like, no one really comes up to coaching like, hey, I want to transform my life, or let me start a personal growth journey, right? People usually don't start that way. Very few. There have been a few, but majority of us don't start that way. And I remember that I said, I didn't technically start that way. And I looked over, I did some assessments over these last few years, and I realized I focused heavy on the personal development, personal growth journey, when truth be told, that is not why I initially started that. Like, now I do want to be like a transformational, like strategist, a strategic coach. I don't even like the word coach, but that's the place we're in. I was like, I run a high-end advice company where I can offer executive coaching, I can do consulting, I can do done-for-you services, but it's really at the core offering advice to help you up-level your life and hold you accountable to the dreams that you said you wanted the dreams that you wanted to unfold. And so that's really how that's now that I'm in it, that's really what it is. And it's like I need to own that. And I was listening to Eric Thomas this morning. Dude was up at 3 a.m. I was up at 4:51, but he was already dressed, doing a live, and probably headed to the studio to his audiobook. And he said a lot of things. I haven't listened to E.T. in like a long time. The first time I started listening to him was back in like 2018, 2019. And I was like, I want to be a motivational speaker. And I actually do want to be like that speaker. Not like him, but a different type of speaker. And that's important. And I'll get to that. So, but then after that, I was like, not that he wasn't my style, but he was like really intense. And I was like, whoa, I don't need that. I mean, he's good for some people, a couple of million, so it's working. But then he popped up on my feed this morning, and as I was doing my morning like walk, I listened to a lot of his videos, and it was just like on point. And one thing that he said was, you got to lean with, rock with your dopeness. And I was like, yeah, I haven't really been leaning and rocking with my dopeness. And I know I'm dope, but it's different when you lean with it and rock with it and really own it and embrace it and say, okay, this is it. And I'll be honest, like I've been mourning the transition of me not being a college professor anymore. And if you watch any of my other YouTube videos, it was like not the thing I aspired to do. But it's like when you become really, really good at something and then the shift happens and it's like, oh man, now what? So, and it's like I've been trying different things, but he really said something about going all in on a particular thing and really looking at your habits. And I am really good, not there again. I am really good about holding people accountable, looking at where the gaps are and saying, this is why you're not getting the results that you want. But then when it comes to me, it's like, oh man. And I have to use my own strategies. And I do have my own team of coaches, by the way. But it's like I had to like really look at myself and say, okay, for real, what's the deal? Because I'm in a situation where I've never been in this situation before. And it's like, what's the deal? Either you're going to own it or you're not. And I've been doing a lot of things. And that's the thing about operating in your brilliance or being like, I don't even want to say in your zone of genius, but like in your flow, it really looks like you're actually like really, really productive. And don't get me wrong, I have done some amazing things, but I know what I put on my vision board. And so when he said that today, and I had a meeting with my money mindset coach today, and it was like, you know, everything, the strategy that you're using now is getting you the results that you want right now. And that's an ouch moment for someone like me, right? So I won't get too deep into that. I'll get back to what I was talking about when I talked about the motivational speaker and the personal growth journey when I was talking to that executive. And so when I did the Facebook post, I was like, you know what? I didn't say, oh my gosh, let me fix my life. How I got into this, and I don't think I've ever shared this, but maybe I did, but not like directly. I was like, how did I actually get into the space of personal growth, personal development, New World, NLP, because now I can't pronounce the whole word, NLP, and understanding how the brain is moving. See, this is what I get for being on TikTok an hour and a half, because I could have avoided all this calamity. But thank the Lord for the rain. It has been hot here in Florida, so we need that. Thank you, Jesus. So I had to really sit there, and then I wrote something on there that people were like, well, tell me how did you actually get started? I want to hear the story. And I was like, oh, well, okay. So, and it may not be as long. I think I was building it up like it was about to be this long, drawn out thing, but it really isn't that deep. So how I actually started to get into this space, and I mentioned Eric Thomas, is when I was actually this started back when I was in my doc program, getting my doctorate degree, and we would have to go to these, well, we didn't have to, but you know, if you wanted to be, you know, at a certain level, you would present at these conferences and write these articles. And the conferences were these for the national organizations. Some of them had regional and state level organizations, but me being the super achiever that I am, I would always go for the national organizations. And then if it was regional, she'd be like, all right. And then you would pick and choose which state conferences you want to speak at. And I remember when I was a K-12 teacher, I used to be like, oh my gosh, like these people must be like something special to be presenting at these conferences, because the district would send us to these conferences. My area was in mathematics. I would go into some leadership conferences and then like some general ed conferences as well. But mainly mathematics and leadership conferences. Those are the big ones that I was attending. So then when I got into my doc program, and then I learned like how to do that, and it was like, oh, this is all you have to do to get in there. I don't know if you can hear the storm through my headphones. But I was like, is that all you have to do to get in there? Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like they accept any and everybody. It is a format and a formula that you have to learn how to do that. And I got good at it and started cranking them out. And then so I will go to them, go to these conferences, do my presentations, and I got, and it was good as a doc student. But then when I became as a doc student, it was kind of like, is this it? Is this all we're gonna do? Because at first it was fun and exciting, but then when I started getting deep into my dissertation and my study, and remembered that I wanted to have my doctorate degree for real change, some of the topics and the presenters were like lackluster. Like, come on now, this can't be it year after year after year. And then when we had the keynotes, so this is important. You have your presenters, your breakouts, and then your keynotes. So then the keynotes will come out. They would be the big names, and I remember like, you know, as I was doing my doctoral studies, learning about the researchers, the heavy hitters in the field, and some of them would keynote, and then you would hear them, and you just be like, how do you get on this main stage, right? So really not thinking much of it. It was just like I was satisfied with being able to be at those conferences. And then when I graduated and then became a college professor, and I would do the same thing, go to these conferences, then it was like, okay, enough is enough. We keep getting these same people that are speaking, people who are like flocking to the keynote speakers, and me and my ABF, I call him my academic best friend, we were looking around like, is this it? It's like, this is why people are flocking to this person. We don't see anything like extra spectacular about them. So both of us, not even talking to each other while we were doing this, we were both looking at like how to become better speakers. And he was on his whole thing. I was on my Earl Nightingale. I think I was looking, of course, Tony Robbins. I was looking at Eric Thomas. That's why I brought him up full circle. Les Brown, Mel Robbins, a little bit of Marie Forleo, but I didn't really look at her as a speaker. I looked at her for something else, but she came later down the road. And then, I really started listening to, and then there were some more, but most of them they were all male, and most of them, not all, because I just said Mel Robbins. But most of them were all male, and majority of them were white males, except for Les Brown and E.T. So my friend, who's a black male, he was like all into both of them, but I was like, man, it's something else has to be different. Like, who else is out there? So the keynote, I did see some women who were keynotes at our big conferences, but still, it wasn't anything to like wow you. Their research and their contribution to the field allowed them to be on those stages, and they were getting paid like $20, $30, $40,000 for like maybe a 60 to 75 minute talk. And and what they were saying, it wasn't like anything earth shattering. And not saying not to discredit them, like they gave great information, and things were good, but when you look outside of when I was looking outside of the education profession and seeing what those speakers were doing, and then looking at our keynote speakers, and it was like, how can we bring that in here? And to me, at this point, the education profession had just been just a very like low vibe place. And people can say what they want to say, but it has been very low vibe, and I won't get into that now because I'll do another video. So I was like, okay, I want to be a dynamic speaker. I want to be that speaker that can move people, make people like change, not just like cry. Oh shoot, I may have to end this broadcast. I want to make sure that I can, let me unplug this, the charger. I want to make sure that I can, like move people to action, not just like make them feel good, not make them cry, but like, oh man, she really said something. Let me, set me on fire. Like there's been a deep change within my soul. Now, I can say all that now, but I didn't have the actual words. I just knew I wanted that out there to come in here. That's really how it started, right? So then I just started looking, then I came across this female speaker, and she was like phenomenal, like the best speaker I had ever heard. Like she was putting these men to shame, and she looked like me. So that was like the cherry on the top. Well, I'm allergic to cherries. That was the bonus, I'll say. And so when I started with that, I had never done anything. My only education and learning came through the traditional education system, all the way through. I'm a traditionalist when it comes to education, like the system. People get mad at the education system, but I was like, the system does what it does what it's supposed to do. And if you want anything different, you yourself have to do something different, or your parents, guardians, or you yourself have to give yourself a different experience. So again, another video, that's like 2 or 3, right? So anyway, I had never done anything, and I started watching her videos, and her name is Lisa Nichols, by the way. Started watching her videos and just was like, oh my gosh. I remember as a college professor, I would like go to work all day and then just come, I was living with my grandmother at the time, and just watch her videos, just binge watch her videos. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to speak like her. And somehow, some way, I stumbled upon, she was doing a program, and I remember the first class, like it was a speaker class, and it was like for $4.97, and I was like, who pays for something outside of a school or a university? I'm not gonna do that. But my soul kept being stirred, like it was stirring up, and it was like, all right, she's obviously doing something I had never seen before. And in my mind, I was like, okay, I can learn how to do this, and then be phenomenal in the education space, especially when I go to my conferences, right? So I was like, okay, we're gonna do that. And I did. I invested, and I started learning these different techniques. And the techniques were like, I've never seen this before, but the way my mind works is always like, I learned something, then how can I apply it to something else? I learned something, how can I apply it to something else? And I was able to start learning how to do that, right? So I did all that, and then it came with a free ticket to her, one of her events. Now, I'm a conference chick. I do conferences well and events well. So when I went to her event, it was like, these people are strange. These people are weird. They talk about coaches. The only coach I knew at the time I was an academic coach, meaning that I was over the mathematics department. So I would help my teachers in my department go to another, like hone their skills, support them, make sure that they are at their optimal level so that they can teach the students and help them get to their optimal level. And plus we had, standards to accomplish. We had a school grades to achieve. So that was my role as an academic coach, not knowing that I was preparing for what I'm doing now. So I went to the conference, and again, I saw these people weird. Like, I'm gonna coach this and all of that, and it was like some of it was touchy-feely. I'm not gonna lie, some of it was touchy-feely. And then I remember getting introduced to a lady who was like a vice president of a big education company, and she had her PhD. We were kind of speaking the same language, so she helped me open up my eyes to this new world of like coaching. But I didn't go there for coaching. I went there because it was a free ticket, and I was able to watch this lady speak. And then it just started opening up more things for me. And then I saw something, somebody give an example of this professor who had opened up and used all these, had these different revenue streams, and using her skill set and all of that. So I was like, oh my gosh. So now watch this. I went there. Some things were happening in my mind. I didn't realize I didn't realize what was going on internally. All right. I didn't realize what was going on internally. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, well, I know I don't want to stay a professor for long. I really wanted to start my consulting business right after grad school. And I kept getting like all these no's. So I was like, well, maybe I need help with business. So I went from that one little investment to this major investment with this business coach. Now, I'll be honest, I had no idea. I had no business. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no business doing that, right? Because instead of me dealing with what was happening, what I was feeling here, I went straight to, well, let me just learn how to do this business. Everything else will take care of itself. Now, while I learned some valuable things from this business coach, it wasn't the right time. And we were at a live event that came with this particular package. And Lisa was there again, and she brought in the personal side, like, checking in with yourself. What are some of the limiting beliefs that you have dealing with? What's your money story? What's your relationship with the money? Now, I've heard limiting beliefs before, and I was like, well, I'm an educator. We talk about growth mindset and fixed mindset. So we talk about the beliefs, especially in mathematics. Like, what are your beliefs and your attitudes towards learning? I'm teaching and leading for mathematics. And then I did a big part of my dissertation on that as well. And then my ABF, his entire dissertation was about parents' beliefs and attitudes about mathematics and how that impacts their students, especially as they're going off to college. So I knew about that, but I didn't know to check my personal beliefs or anything like that. The only kind of personal things that I would do would be like, I went to church. I'm a Christian. I went Bible study. I know that stuff. But I didn't know this other world of self-help books. I started reading some, but nothing too deep, because everything for me was focused on being the U.S. Secretary of Education. So I need to learn this leadership, I need to know this math, I need to know this curriculum, how schools operate, how children learn, how teachers teach, how administrators lead, all of that. So we're at this event out in California, and I just remember as Lisa was talking about all the stuff that have to deal with who you are at your core. I mean, I'm just bawling, crying, and I was like, why am I crying at this business conference? What is happening? I'm supposed to be learning about forecasting and taxes and back-end systems and office managers and financial reports and things like that. And it was just something just not right. And I remember Lisa now she said this at the conference, but I tuned her out. But she said it again. It was your business life or your professional life would never outgrow your personal growth or your personal development. I didn't know what she meant the first time she said it. It was kind of I hear what you're saying on the second time. But then around day 2.5, day 3 of the conference, it was really starting to hit. And we did some like breakout exercises because Lisa was like, I need to show y'all like why it's important for you to take care of who you are at your core, your personal beliefs, and really getting to know you, your identity, and all of that before you jump into this business. And now, mind you, I started all of this with speaking, and Lisa did have a speaking component, and I was like, oh no, I got enough of that. Let me go straight to the business. But what I needed was more of the speaking, because in the speaking, you learn how to pull who you are at your core out. And you know, we hear a lot now about share your story, what's your message, and all of that. What a lot of people who talk about this don't realize is that there's some work that you have to do deep down within yourself. There are some layers that have to come off. There's some, some ground, some dirt you got to break through to till that soil, so who you are and the message and the experiences that you've gone through can actually come out and be beneficial. You're not just up there talking for talking's sake. You're not out there just to razzle and dazzle. Now, some people do it and they're very good at it, but they're not making the lasting impact that they think that they're making. And I've only had a few coaches since then who really understand what it means to share your story, share your message for impact and influence that's greater than you, not just to have people like just rah, rah, rah. But anyway, so any of that, again, I'm only at the business part. So we're doing all these exercises, and Lisa and the business coach, they were doing a great job at showing like how both of these work. And then so we did another exercise, and at this point, like, I just can't hear anything else. I'm just like crying and crying, because now my soul is like, gosh, this is what we've been waiting for. So we go into this other room, and and I look around, and it's all Black women. Now, the business conference was very diverse, right? But then on the breakout, it was like only Black women there. And I remember watching the video. It was for a retreat. And again, I'm just bawling, like just tears flooding. Now, I'd already made this huge investment with this business coach, but something in me is like, I have to go do this retreat. Now, I will say I had been reading self-help books. Like Valerie Burton's book was the one that I can truly remember, where I started doing the work, but I didn't know what to do with that. And now looking back, and it was like, well, all I had to do was reach out to her, because all of her information was there in the book. But I just didn't know. It was just so much I did not know. And so, long story short, I ended up going to the retreat. Now, follow me. Remember, I said all of this started because I wanted to learn how to become a better speaker, so I can go back to these conferences and blow the roof off in these presentations. I eventually want to be one of the keynote speakers, and then I also wanted to bring these techniques back into the education profession to show teachers and administrators how to be better at their craft and moving the audience, whether those were students, staff, or other administrators, right? Because there was a lot of presentation happening. Whether if you're a classroom teacher, you're still doing a presentation. And if you are a superintendent, you still have to do a presentation. So everybody would benefit from this particular skill set, and with some tweaks, right? So that was my whole focus. From all of that, I ended up learning about getting a business coach before I even was like, well, I won't say before I was ready, because you never know what you're ready for, but I didn't realize some of the blocks that I had to keep that kept me or prevented me from really soaring, how, looking back on it, how I could have been soaring, if that makes sense. So all of that, I ended up signing up for this retreat, which was another huge investment, and it was in Turks and Caicos, and I went in 2019. And so it was 2018 at the conference and things like that. Things shifted in 2019 for me. And, as we were prepping to go to the retreat, we get this online course. And again, I'm like, online courses? The only online courses I know are at universities. And those are for people who want online degrees. So again, really not understanding, but I was like, well, I'll watch these videos, I'll do these exercises, and they reminded me of the self-help books that I was doing, like from V.ii.B.E book. So as I'm going through these exercises and watching the videos and answering the questions and really taking it seriously, I'm like, oh my gosh, more things started coming up, and I was like, I've been living with this my whole life. I mean, it was just a lot. Like you're challenging how you viewed yourself. You're challenging some of the things that you've learned growing up. You're challenging things you learned in church. You are challenging like how you've been operating your whole life. It was just like mind-blowing to me. So I do that work, get serious about it, then I go to the retreat because I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Cracked open again. Now, mind you, I just want to be a better speaker. Cracked me open. I shared things I had never shared before and never shared since. Worked on some healing. I didn't realize I needed healing as it related to my mom's death and what happened in that situation. And a lot of things unfolded. I ended up writing a book, my first book, and I started becoming better at being a professor because it was like I stopped trying to prove and defend and protect and hide. I got a lot of business with consulting. Things opened up for me, and I started getting more into the world of coaching. I got another business coach because I quit that program. I was like, this was too much because, again, I didn't know how to show up for that. These were people who were already like multi-thousandaires and multi-millionaires in that circle. And I was like, yeah, I got doctor in front of my name. But at this time, I was like, I didn't even want to use the title as doctor. And then I was like, well, these people are not doctor and they are making bank and have like real businesses. So who am I? I had a lot of work to do with that. And then, so I got this other like business coach who kind of like started at the basics of what I needed to do, and still not really understanding why things were coming at a standstill. I was still like searching at this point. Now I've been cracked open, but not really having the guidance to know. And there's no fault to the coaches, but sometimes when you work with large number, like a big name person, you're a number, and you get to show up like how you want to, but sometimes that can be overwhelming. So I was just kind of like lost out there, and I was like, well, maybe I need a smaller group. So I went to another coach for speaking because I was like, well, let me get back to that. That experience wasn't so great either, but I said all of this to say was I kind of lost my focus as to why I wanted to start all of this. But when things started uncovering and I started learning more about coaching, I used that stuff. I used what I learned as a professor, and there was another shift happening, and then I started speaking more, but it was more like on women empowerment and things like that. Anyway, I won't get into all of that. Again, that's video number 4, I guess. But seriously, so, excuse me, I said all this to say, and again, not scripted, so I'm trying to find my words. I said all that to say is I focused so much on the personal development, because what happened is, like, when you are cracked open and you learn something new and you got a major transformation, you're like, oh my gosh, I want to teach somebody else. Well, for me, it wasn't even teaching. I was like, I want to show other people how to do this. And I really wasn't taking myself seriously as a business. I knew how to be a consultant, but then, and I got contracts for, large school districts and universities and departments of ed, but it was still something like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. And I got so far removed from my initial, let me tell you this is what I mean. My initial, how I want to do this was transform the learning experience of 1 billion students. And then it evolved into transform the learning experience of 1 billion people. And I believe that if I could help teachers, leaders, anybody who's in the training and development industry, if I could help them be better speakers and facilitators, then we could truly transform the learning experience of 1 billion people. And I change it from people than just students, because sometimes when I hear students, I still think of like little kids or K-12, but students are, you can be an adult and still be a student. And training and development, they have them at businesses and corporations. But I got away from that because then I started really focusing on the transformational side. Not saying that it was wrong, but it was like I didn't give it enough energy. So when I started my personal growth journey, it really wasn't about that. It really was about how to enhance the profession of education with training and development. And then from there, that's when I learned, like, oh man, if you don't know who you are at your core, then you're going to teach, lead, and serve your representative. And because I say we teach, lead, and serve who we be at our core. And if you don't know that, if you have some outdated beliefs, limiting beliefs, some jacked up perspectives, relationship with money, relationships with men, women, mother, father, past trauma, childhood drama, young adult drama. If you have all of that going on, and then you're the person that's leading, teaching, or serving others, all of that is getting filtered through that particular lens. And I remember I did the work with my college students. It was like, we got to break down some of that stuff, because you all are going to be responsible for children and, their lives. So you can't go in with your stuff, right? And I'm not saying that you got to be perfect to show up, but you got to, here's a good example. Learn your triggers. Learn your triggers and learn how to control them or disarm them. And when you're dealing with students from pre-K to college, well, I'll just say adults too, the master's levels, whatever. There are some things that will happen that will send you back. You have some flashbacks, some old thoughts, beliefs, behaviors come up. And if you don't know how to deal with that, that's how you come across in the classroom. That's where you have these fights, these arguments, all these other things. And I could clearly see that. And so I was like, oh, well, we have to deal with the person. And then once we deal with the person, their self-leadership, then they will be able to transform others, but they have to transform themselves first. And this happened when I was doing workshops. But all of this to say is I got a little too far off the deep end of women's empowerment. And while I believe that's important, I really want to come back and hone this skill set. And I see like so many people like, tell your story, share your message, expand your life, go to the next level. And I felt like all of those were cliche, but honestly, it's the truth. It really is. And Tony Robbins has made millions and millions of dollars on personal development. My coaches have made millions of dollars on personal development. And it sounds so woo-woo, but I noticed that a lot of them are connecting it to business, being an entrepreneur. I don't believe everyone needs to be an entrepreneur. I don't believe everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur, and that's no dig, because it's not like it's all glamorous to be an entrepreneur. And plus, we need people in their professional spaces, like at the corporations. But I do believe everyone should be a parallelpreneur. I believe everyone should have additional streams of income and learn how to monetize their brilliance. And that's what I say, embrace your brilliance, expand your life. Like, learn how to use your skill sets beyond your position, titles, and degrees. I do believe that. So I forgot my train of thought what I was gonna say about that. Oh, but I do believe, like, now, instead of it being a business, I do believe like the personal development needs to be connected to some sort of skill set. Remember, I wanted to be a better speaker. There are some people who tie in personal development and business. But now I was like, oh, I need to get back to the training and development part, the leadership part. And I'll be honest, at first it was like, oh my gosh, it's so saturated. Everybody is doing it. One, that's not true. Neither one of those are true. But if it appears saturated, and I heard a coach say this, that means it's a good thing. That means there's money to be made and people to impact and serve in that particular area. So all of that, don't even know how long I've been on here. All of that to say is that is how I truly started my, now I call it self-expansion journey. I wanted to become a better speaker. So now what I do is, when I say I help women go from unstuck to unstoppable, that means you really, the women I work with are savvy. They're pretty high up in their careers, or they know what they want and they're doing good, but it's like now we go from good to great. When I talk about helping women move from resume to reinvention, who are you outside of your position, titles, and degrees? How can we look at that skill set that you already have? And then we got to go cycle that through a process, because now we have to shed all of that, because there's a lot that comes. The higher you go up, especially in traditional education, the higher you go up or the more intense you go, there are a lot of things that get packed onto you, and you're so packed down. That's why you feel stuck. Like it may look like you're being successful, but you're not being successful in multiple areas of your life, because so much stuff is packed on, like rules, protocol, things you had to do to get to that point, and now they no longer serve you. So now we got to chip away from those things that no longer serve you, so you can evolve and then become the person that you envision in your head and in your heart. And then again, like I said, embrace your brilliance and expand your life, taking your learned brilliance and your born brilliance and making that the foundation of who you are at your core, and so you can fall in love with the human being that you were created to be and not just learn to be. All right, so I hope all of this lands for you. I didn't have any of my notes and things scripted out, but I was like, you know what, let me end the day strong. I want to make sure that I do something productive, because if you watch one of my TikToks, I said the middle of the day be middling sometimes, and that's what happened to me today. Like, I started off strong, some things happened in the middle, and I was like, no, I am going to end the day strong and do something productive. So my intention was to have this video go up like on August 1st, but the way it's still lightning things, I am just not going to edit. I'm not going to push the envelope to be on all of this technology with the light. So I am going to sign off, and this will be up as soon as possible. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please put them down in the comments below. If you want to connect with me, especially as I talk about true brilliance, moving from resume to reinvention, to get a sneak peek of what that is, go to drvernitaglenn-white.com/start here. That information will be down below, and I would love to connect with you. And please comment down below. I am now being really intentional about growing my YouTube channel. That's another thing. I was like, well, I got all of these ways to help people in different areas, and it was like, here, and this is why it's important to do self-expansion or personal development, and then tie that to a skill set. Is at first it's like, oh well, my work should speak for myself, and that's an outdated belief that a lot of us have had, especially women who look like me or adjacent to me. It was like, well, I can work hard, I don't have to tell anybody what I do, they'll see my work. And that served us well at a certain point, but now that's an outdated belief. Now we actually have to tell people what we do and be unapologetic about what we have to offer, because everything we do is an invitation. So everything I do is an invitation. Like, I have a wellness company, I do have the trading venture, I do coaching, consulting, speaking, I have books, what else? Some other I got done for you services on the business side. I can call myself, well, I don't say I'm a business coach, but I have business strategies that I learned to help people with. So multifaceted over here, and that's why the tagline of my company is practical solutions for complex situations. I like to say practical applications for complex situations because it rhymes, but it really is about providing solutions to people and giving them access and opportunity to their imagined dreams. So anyway, I'm going to end with that, but just that little part right there, that means there's some personal work to be done so you can show up to be your most powerful and empowered self. All right, I promise that's all I have for you. Have a great night, morning, day, wherever you're watching this. And remember to be well, be empowered, be bold, and be brilliant. Until next time, bye.